welcome back to the Sharing Insights podcast video series. You're about to watch a video that I took at St. Michael's Permaculture Country Club with Justin Dolan. Now, I spent a really amazing day there. We actually got 2 podcast episodes out of the deal, and they're just packed with information. One of the things that we visited was this Bokashi Biochar hugelkultur system that Justin's using to make soil amendments. And while we did capture some super useful information that I really don't want you to miss, so we're going ahead and putting this video out, I had an equipment failure. And so the microphones, the audio's kind of weak in some spots. And yeah, we were dealing with the elements too. So please forgive that aspect of it and kick back, enjoy the next so many minutes where you get to learn something that is highly useful and can really be done on any homesteading project to improve soil, use waste in a good way. And really, one of the big benefits for Justin is that it keeps his horse corral, his animal corral, clean because of the microorganisms that he's stirring up in there. So I'll let you check out the rest from here in out, and I hope you enjoy. To make it all by yourself. Here we are at the Permaculture Country Club, again with Justin Dolan. We had some great interviews yesterday that you can hear on the Sharing Insights podcast. And we talked in the podcast about his soil building techniques, and one of his secrets, efforts is in producing this bokashi. And I'm gonna let Justin tell us a little bit more about it.
Sure, our bokashi is basically a fermented product. We include some of the finest manure we can find. Our cows aren't injected with drugs to kill the mosquitoes that bite them, or the bats, or the flies that land on them. We make a spray that goes on the outside of them, an external spray that is, it's pretty much edible. So it's not going to harm the fungus we want to grow with our cow poop. And that's one problem I see in a lot of the production of manures and compost, is that you use animals that are treated with chemicals, and these chemicals are made to kill funguses. And if you look at the excrement from an animal that's raised naturally, you'll find that that dung beetles and bugs like this and find nutrients in it. We try to promote the good things that are living, the good flora and fauna, and the guts are the most important things for, I think, our digestive system, the cows, and for our bokashi. And our corral, I wish you could smell it, because it doesn't smell at all. I mean, you can come in here when it's filled with poop and pee, and it smells fresh and clean, like really fresh and clean, like you don't smell anything at all. And
exaggeration. I've been in a lot of corrals in Costa Rica, and there's no joke. This is where cows and horses come regularly.
And not only that, I mean, we can take the bokashi here. It's basically a prebiotic and a probiotic. If there's a farm or a place that has animals, you can take this and spray it on that farm, and it'll fix the smell of those other places. And it also fixes things like E. coli bacteria, all kinds of bad viruses and bad bacteria. When they fight with the good bacteria it's in numbers here, and it's strong, so it wins out most of the time, and
so that's
it keeps
why
it.
Make the bokashi.
It protects the plants,
but it's also a protectant.
Yeah, it makes our plants stronger. It protects them, and it gives them the opportunity. This bokashi puts in this mycelium in our ground. That actually, it's the below ground part of the mushroom that actually reaches out and connects to the roots of the plants and connects to other roots of the plants. It becomes a large network where the plants can communicate. They can share their minerals, their water, their resources. They can actually, say, look, hey, there's water over this way, and the plants will actually start sending their roots in the direction where there's water because the other plants have told them about it.
Right, and so mycelium is a carrier of that information, and that's one of the ingredients in your bokashi.
It is. Yeah, we go out in the forest, we source our mycelium from our forest. You can buy it online, but we prefer to source it locally. It's really expensive. You buy it in the local. It's better for your area. If you have a local one, it's much better to have your local than introduce a new mycelium.
The mycelium, right?
Have to have a good bacteria in the soil to help fix that nitrogen to the roots. And yeah, it's pretty amazing how we can just take nitrogen out of the air and put it in the ground and make a fertilizer instead of having to go through the chemical process of making nitrogen, which is one of the most widely used fertilizers we have in the world is nitrogen. And we don't really need to spend money on nitrogen. We don't need to spend the environmental cost of making the nitrogen or the transportation cost to get it. We can make it.
Ground.
Yeah, we can make nitrogen. Nitrogen is everywhere around us in the air, and with the good bacteria in the soil and with nitrogen fixing plants, and there's a ton of them. Once they're inoculated with that good bacteria, they can get in the soil and they can actually fix nitrogen in the soil. And these plants, when they grow, there's a lot of plants that are nitrogen fixers, and we'll chop and drop them. We'll cut up the leaves and we'll turn those into compost, and they're really heavy nitrogen, or we'll just let them compost naturally.
When you break those down, the roots that were going wide, they die off. Nitrogen goes in.
Exactly.
So when we're talking about Bokashi being a quality soil amendment, it's not necessarily because it's some perfect mixture of calcium and potassium and nitrogen. It's because it's a tonic for the soil. It has ingredients in the soil that helps the soil create its own balance.
It does, and we add some things. Like one of our ingredients is rock dust. When you add rock dust to our compost and our Bokashi, it actually adds minerals to it. So, we have the unsulfurated molasses, which we use to help the mycelium propagate. We won't use any water that's chlorinated or from a government system. We'll use water from the rain or water from a stream. We'll mix it with the unsulfurated molasses. We add the sugar to the biochar, to the water. Then we'll put a lot of grass in our corral to let the animals have something to absorb it, especially for the urine. The urine's really rich in nitrogen too, so the animals.
Any grass?
Well, our grass never has any pesticides or herbicides, so it has to be completely untouched with synthetic chemicals. Seeds aren't a problem because we're gonna cook it. We've got a really long thermostat. We'll stick in there, and this stuff will get so hot it'll even kill out the mycelium, so we cut it off at 150 degrees. We'll cook it to 150, so the seeds, they'll compost down. It's a hot, moist mix of 150 degrees of, really just black dirt once it's done. We'll do layers in the corral of dry grass, fresh grass, dry leaves, and some fresh greens, and just have a nice lasagna of green and browns to get our carbons and nitrogens, because when the green and browns are together like that in those layers, they seem to be activated and have a synergistic effect where they actually break down faster if you have a mix instead of just one of all the other. Then on top of that, we'll add the manure and the urine on top of that, and then we'll add another layer, and then we'll add a layer of rock dust, another layer of the mycelium and biochar on there, another layer on top of that. And
how tall does this thing get?
It only has to get like right about here is perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I found that, and that layer there, once it's at that layer, it'll compact down to less than half of it before we even make our pile out of it. And then we pile it up. And once we pile it up, we make sure the moisture's correct. We want a moisture that is moist enough where we squeeze a handful of it, just a couple drops of water come out of it. Because if you squeeze it and nothing comes out, it's too dry. And if you have a whole bunch of water, it's too moist. So you have to have enough oxygen there for this to work. You have to have a lot of sugar for it to grow, and the moisture should be just right. And
after how much time do you give it to gestate before you start?
Well, it's usually we just put them out it's usually the next day, but this stuff works in hours. I mean, if you had a
No, I mean as far as when it's ready after it's trampled and everything and you mound it up.
Well, we
usually use it right away, or
we let it sit. I mean, it'll get ready really quick, but we try and keep it for 2 weeks, and we just keep constantly turning it. And
okay, that's a better time reference. Yeah, I could see it breaking down better by then.
Yeah, it's by that time we know it's been at 150 degrees for 2 weeks, and every single part of it. There's no chance of anything that hasn't been in the middle of the hottest part cooking off.
Yeah.
But that's another thing is. It's a process you have to keep an eye on. You can't let it get too hot, because if it gets too hot, it'll actually burn off all the good stuff as well as the bad stuff. So, yeah, around 150 degrees is where we try and keep our temperature at.
Perfect. I like the plan, and I like the execution too. Before we wrap up, I want to go take a look at the biochar. That's another thing that's part of your system that I think a lot of people are very interested in. Awesome. This here is, I'm going to bring it up to the camera so people can see. This is charcoal that's made from creating a fire, but then starving that fire from oxygen. And so the carbon doesn't burn, but it's a low enough burn that it burns all the nutrients and everything out of the wood, so that all that's left over is this charcoal, which has a very high surface area. It absorbs nutrients and water.
Yes, the biochar it's the best place to grow mycelium. Mycelium loves the biochar. It's almost like a little condominium. We can allow the biochar to have protected space and to grow and reproduce. And the carbon that we're adding to the soil actually holds in nutrients and water. And with this mycelium, it allows these plants to suck a little more water out slowly each day when there's a drought, and extend their roots into areas where they normally wouldn't be able to get into to get water. So biochar is a very important part of our process.
So there's got to be like 150, 200 gallons of char in these bags and buckets here. And you just make a big batch all at once?
Yeah, we save up all of our wood waste, that's the non-treated, non-painted stuff that's like branches too big to compost. You know, once we get a big, huge pile of them, we'll have an enormous hole. We'll dig the hole out and load the wood, start it on fire, and then once the fire gets going really good, we'll start putting some green palm leaves on top of it, knock the flames down, and put some dirt on top of that, make a little layer to smother out with just a few little tubes, let a little bit of the volatile gases escape, and that burns down slowly. It burns out all the volatile gases and makes us a nice charcoal product that we can inoculate with mycelium.
Cool. Let's go out in the rain again and show just the area, because after you make the biochar, you make that hole and you filled it up and you put the leaves on top and you put a little dirt on top and you let it smolder down, and you get this that you dug out, and you did something else with that hole, which is great.
Yeah, we have a lot of biochar, way more than we need for a few months, but our hole was really big and we had a lot of extra wood, so another product you can do with waste wood is hugelkultur.
Let's go check it out.
All right.
This out here doesn't maybe look super impressive right now, but this is the site of where there was a hole that the biochar was made, and now a technique called hugelkultur has been implemented that's going to create some super fertile soil here for growing. And Justin, tell us a little bit more about it.
Oh, yeah, hugelkultur is basically us using more of our waste wood. We had way more wood than we could possibly use for our biochar. So we filled in the hole, and we had a nice slope here that would be a great garden because it's so close to the barn. We could take our bokashi only a few steps away to have a garden, that's fertilized and close to watch over. So we put all of our trimmings and trees that fell down that have no use. There's not any good firewood in there. There's soft woods that are going to basically break down and turn into the soil we need. We cover it with some typical red clay here. That's not a very fertile soil. Then on top of that, we'll be throwing leaves, sticks, anything small, grass clippings, and our bokashi to turn this form a hole for making biochar to a nice healthy garden.
That's awesome. Great way to stack functions and
get rid of your waste.
Get ready for the next spot.
Yeah, having no waste is one of our goals. So anytime we have something, there's always some purpose for it. And our job is to find out where that waste is going to serve.
Awesome. I love it. So that is the loop of making bokashi and soil fertility just right here in this part of the farm. And of course, there's different practices happening everywhere, but this is the Bokashi station. Thanks for sharing it with us.
My pleasure.
Boom, there it is, Justin Dolan. So much passion. Hope you made out what he was saying there. Hope you had a notebook out and gonna put some of that into practice. Any bit of it. Just understand that there are more ways to get better at being land stewards. Hey, we've got another video coming out with his part 2 episode next week, where he'll be just kind of going over some of the philosophies he's been using vines and living rooftops to keep his houses cool. So be sure to check in. We'll have that one subtitled for you so you get all the information. And yeah, if you like what Justin's saying, go ahead and leave some comments in the notes below. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, get some notifications. We've got a lot of great teachers coming up in this series. And I incidentally get better at taking video, or at least kind of. Or at least I take more of it so that the editors can do more with it. Big thanks to Joy for doing what she could with the limitations there. And hey, let's just keep going.